I would like to discuss about the AKASHIC record and past lives as well as future lives. The AKASHIC record reveals to us our authentic code. Now, our authentic code unravels our character, our personalities, as well as our psychic capability and incarnational mastery. So our AKASHIC record is the Merkaba. So we associate the Merkaba as the 10th gate. Okay, the 10th gate is, we can say, 2 feet to 4 feet above your head. It is the portal we can see that we travel through when we come into life, such as when we come into the fetus on the 120th day of our mother's pregnancy, or when we die, and our subtle body and our soul body emerge together, and basically it uplifts out of the crown and through the 10th gate. And also we connect to the 10th gate when we astral travel, right? When we astral travel, basically our subtle body and our soul body are basically flying, right? Our subtle body is very expansive. And according to yogic science, our aura is naturally, you can say, 10 feet, right? When it's developed, right? It's 10 feet in all directions. But when it is very developed with the using of the subtle body for astral travel and remote viewing and just psychic ability to project, when you really practice projection, right? As a lot of it's a skill, right? We train. Your aura can go 18 miles, but that is developing a projection skill, meaning learning how to project my energy, right? And our subtle body can go even further than that, even further than 18 miles. Our subtle body actually travels through dimensions. See as a subtle body as an interdimensional traveler. So what that means is that when we dream and we have these experiences that seem a little bit otherworldly, that seem like we're in places that we know don't exist in our current reality, right? In this physical plane, that is our subtle body is astral traveling to another dimension, right? So when we dream, many dimensions become available to us. Many dimensions become available because our subtle body travels, right? And that's why we meditate, because when we get into the practice of learning how to project and how to guide and know how to basically conduct your subtle body, right? Just like a shaman in a deep sort of hypnosis, right? Of the people around, they're putting people in deep self-hypnosis for remembrance of their AKASHIC record, their assignments, their mastery, as well as to help them heal, right? Deep sort of subconscious wounds or trauma or patterns or scars. A shaman basically knows how to guide the subtle body, because if we don't know how to guide, it becomes a dream that just seems like it's all over the place and we have no control, right? Because many people who have been, under ayahuasca in some sort of ritual, right, to connect with the infinite, right? I kind of call it the Brahman, connect with the Brahman, which is this everything at once sort of life force that's very, very powerful, right? A very almost overpowering, right, kind of experience. A lot of people have said that they have gotten so much information, but they couldn't really organize it because they didn't have a tool. They didn't know how to really decipher it. So they're getting all these shapes, all these symbols, all this light language, all this code, and they didn't know how to decipher it, right? So it's basically like going into the AKASHIC record of ancient Egypt, right, and seeing the chambers of all this hieroglyphics, right, and having no idea how to decipher it. You can feel it. You can feel the power of it, but you don't know how to decipher your own psychic ability. So you can feel the power, but you don't know how to transcribe it, right, into like a tool or method or theory or what we call like knowledge, right? It just becomes a feeling. You vibrates through you, but you don't know how to transcribe it, and you don't know how to bring it into form, right? So a shaman is very much an individual who, through the lineage, has been working on these esoteric teachings, right? That very much has to do with your psychic ability and knowing how to decipher these code, right? Because everything beyond our sort of physical self, everything is very much light, sound, and movement, right? That's the great universe. And when we are receiving like information from outside our planetary system, usually when we receive information outside planetary system, usually it comes through light, sound, or movement, right? So light can be about you're receiving like, symbols. You're receiving like fluctuations of colors. You're receiving patterns, right? Sound can be very much your hearing vibration, right? There's a frequency, right? And within that frequency, there's a message, as well as movement, right? Movement can be, as well as like Mandela, can be energy, right? Energy that's taking shape and repatterning and reorganizing, right? In front of you, right? And that's kind of how our subtle body works. Our subtle body works through light, sound, and movement. Because when we are in our sort of Merkaba energy, our Merkaba has a sound, meaning it emits a frequency, kind of sounds like a gong, right? It has light, right? The Merkaba has color, and it has movement, right? Our Merkaba is spinning, right? Think of it like a spaceship that is spinning, right? It's spinning quite so fast that it doesn't appear to be spinning because it's spinning so fast. So it appears invisible to us, right? Because the energy is just moving so fast. So that's our Merkaba, that's our 10th gate, right? That's the subtle body that we basically use to travel and to remote view and astral project and all these kinds of, we also connect with expansive information outside of our planetary system because our subtle body also is connected to consciousness. And research is discovering that consciousness actually moves faster than the speed of light. Very, very interesting. And consciousness is very much connected to the subtle body, right? The ability to basically, like a grid, right? We know that Earth has a grid, right? We can call it the ley lines. We can call it just this network, right? Where energy, right? There's just energy crossing like angles, right? Angles upon angles that creates almost like this mandala, right? Earth is this mandala of a grid, right? Like a web that energy passes through, right? To connect to certain areas, right? To connect all around the world. But there's hot spots, right? Where many lines, grid points, cross and they intersect. And those intersection points are considered sacred spots, meaning they're highly energetic and highly electromagnetic. And those points were basically a lot of ancient pyramids, and you can say temples, synagogues, sacredness was established on these hot spots, right? Where there were many lines that were intersecting, and basically see many lines as much energy is crossing at this one point, right? Because ley lines as well as grid point has to do with, it's a network of energy. Just like we have a network of energy in our physical body, right? We have a network within our aura. We have a network within our electromagnetic field, right? Where there's just the circuits that are patterned in a certain way where energy it moves. It moves. So our subtle body is able to connect to an even greater grid point, and that has to do with even beyond our solar system, even beyond our galaxy. And that's where we start to hear people talking about like light language and talking about mythology and talking about history of other planets, right? History of Pleiades and the Sirius and any sort of interaction Earth has had with other planetary systems. Basically, we share such a record with those planetary systems. So we have a connection, right? We're connected, right? When we intermingle with these other planetary systems, our genetic code begins to intermingle, meaning our cultures begin to intermingle, right? The culture of Pleiades, or the cultures of many ET races begin to intermingle, and we begin to basically share, right, the Akashic record of our planet as well as their planet. It's accessible to us. So I wanted to share about this subtle body energy, right? This 10th gate. Now, with our past lives, right? People in their present life, right? We're all kind of, I see it as we're solving, resolving, and creating, right? Solving, resolving, and creating. So solving can be like let's say we're working on a talent and we want to solve it, meaning we want to get to the point where we get very gifted at it, right? Whatever that is for us. And it's multiple things. Like, for example, a lot of individuals, especially now, are working on multiple incarnations at once. That sounds kind of strange, right? Like, what does that mean? Some people can be working up to 3. Some people can work on 7 incarnations at once, right? And that's like, whoa, how do you do that, right? Basically, you're working on 3 major sort of characteristics that involve like an expression of a mastery or talent or of some sort of craftsmanship, right? And you're working on that in 3 different sort of characteristics, right? It can be talents that you're working on, but they're different, right? So with our past incarnations, it really is like we can't, like, people like to leave things hanging, right? We really can't, right? On a soul level, we really can't leave things hanging, right? As intense as an overpowering, right, the life can be sometimes, we can't leave things like in a dusty corner and just like I'm just gonna hang in vengeance and hang in this sort of and leave it stagnant, right? We have to bring everything. If anything gets in discord, we have to bring it back to. We have to make amends, and when we say make amends, we say we have to bring it back to its natural state, right? And for us, we can say it as learning the lesson, right? Or our, forgiveness or compassion or, letting go of something or someone that we've carried or we've gotten attached to, but it doesn't bring us to our natural state, right? And that can be all kinds of self-sabotage, self-hate that gets us attached and interlocked with persons or people, right? That just create this inner sort of turmoil or create this discord within us. So we really, we have to right? And some people, it can take multiple incarnations. We really have our goal, right, in coming to the physical body, and that's why we have multiple lifetimes, many lifetimes, because Earth is about incarnation, right? It's about reincarnation, it's about incarnation. But the trick with it that people don't really understand is that when you come into this planet, you have to have a very strong sort of psychic energy, because if not, you're gonna get completely you're gonna get watered down, right? Everything like you remember and everything that all that energy, the weight, right, of this planet and the sort of programming of it and all the agendas will put you in a whirlwind and can completely sort of water down what you came here to do if you don't have like a strong sense of psychic development, right, or self-trust. So that's why, many lifetimes in our higher incarnations, we work heavily on developing our psychic energy, right, because we need that. We need that to travel out of this planet, and we need that to travel into this planet, because this planet, there is a lot of earthbound energies, right? Like kind of what we call stuck energies, stagnant energies, ghosts, hauntings, these kinds of things, where they just simply can't leave because they don't know how. They don't have the psychic awareness or the psychic energy to actually leave, right? So then they're just kind of lingering around, waiting for an opportunity to be reincarnated again, so that hopefully they can gain some spiritual power, some liberation, so that they can get more psychic energy to eventually what we call ascend or leave this planetary system and be free, right? In our higher vibration, we are not meant to be bound to a planet. We're meant to be elemental, but we're meant to be also interstellar. We're meant to be gifted at movement, right? Gifted at building ourselves and basically creating our way, right? So with our future life, right? Our future lives, really, it's created through our intention that we have in this lifetime and the evolution of that intention. So I like to see we have a desire, right? And that's established before we're born, right? The desire, we want to do something, and we have a tool to do that, but we also have feeling associated with whatever we're doing, right? And we have a desire, that's our desire, right? Before we're incarnated, we have something we want to do. We have a tool for how to go about doing that, right? A talent, craftsmanship, something from a past incarnation, right? That we got good at. Very, very good, because we kept doing it consistently, and we became really, really, gained a lot of honor and respect for that. We became very credible. And then we also have evolutionary necessity. And that has to do with the sort of progression of our soul, right? As we continue to initiate ourselves, and Mother Gaia initiates us into these higher educations, in many forms, right? New experiences for a greater sort of view of ourself, right? That's our evolutionary necessity, right? Because we are working both on karma and dharma. We're both working on how we can, our karmic sort of deeds, right? It just simply is, we can have good karma as well, right? We can have good karma, and that simply means that you've created a lot of fairness, a lot of justice within your situations, right? Meaning you can say like you've been empowered, you've risen above, you've created a lot of sort of balance, right? Within we have good integrity, right? That we talk about good karma, but bad karma can be about a lot of it is like we as human, we're working on irresponsibility. We can get very irresponsible, right? Because when we get into pain or trauma, or when we get into anything that, like these lower vibrations, these lower realities, that there's a lot of recklessness, there's a lot of like unruly behavior, there's just a lot of like dysfunction. We can create patterns of self-hate, self-demise, self-destruct, all of that. And we create a lot of discord, right? And we call bad karma as simply you need to, that feeling where, oh man, like why was I doing this stuff, right? Why was I doing that stuff? It just simply means you have to be responsible, right? And responsible, right? Because when you start to be responsible, you start to get out of those lower vibrations. You start to get into what we call emotional and spiritual maturity. And that's when you start to really tap into your natural state. Because our natural state is not to be reckless, unruly, doing whatever we want to whoever we want, like I don't care kind of thing. We're not meant to do that. That's not natural, right? It's a program from a negative agenda on planet Earth, right? But we're not meant to dwell there. We're meant to be aware of those agendas, but we're also meant to be sovereign. And that's kind of the greater sort of ascension, is to be sovereign, right? Where we understand that there are negative agendas that do want us to hate ourselves, right? Because then we're distracted and confused, and, we are easily manipulated, right? And there's also higher agendas that are about, you can say, humanitarian, environmental sort of progress, right, in a positive direction. And when we become sovereign, we become liberated. So we are very self-responsible, right? And we're very close to our psychic awareness when we become responsible, right? We become very much... we have an assignment, right? A duty, an oath that we make to ourselves and to our evolutionary necessity and to our desire, right? But again, we get in this earth, it's so easy for us to get watered down, for us to take on the trauma of our parents and the trauma of our geographic region, or the depression, of any sort of irresponsibility that created all this sort of discord. And we can really sort of get off, right? Sort of go adrift. And what really pulls us together, right? Pulls us back to our rhythm, right? And again, because we're meant to be rhythmic, right? Is when we start to really become responsible for our creative expression, right? And within all creativity, there's character and there's courage, right? As Yogi Bhajan would say, the three C's: courage, character, and creativity, right? And that's our creativity is very much our, I say creative destiny, as that is our point of sovereignty, right? Of liberation. When we are entering into a creative destiny, we start to become liberated and we become sovereign. So therefore, we're no longer sort of interlocked and bound and sort of feeling stuck or stagnant in lower vibrations that really, there's no energy, right? It's non-energy, right? Stagnant, dusty, sort of, there's no energy. It's non-energy. Therefore, it's an illusion that we're actually moving forward, but in reality, we're really not, because emotionally and spiritually, we're still very immature. And we cannot creatively bloom when we're not emotionally or spiritually maturing, right? We cannot bloom, right? Consciousness cannot bloom. So think of your flower as your consciousness is blooming. And consciousness simply has to do with your ability to connect with higher information, with a higher quality of life. That's consciousness, right? It's a higher quality of life. Either that's you're eating better, right? Or higher quality can be like your creativity is all of a sudden it's a lot better, right? It's more refined. It has just a sound current that is really really empowering and very impactful, right? Your body, you start to get a glow, right? You start to connect with the radiant body. Just a higher quality of life, right? Where prosperity and you got just natural intelligence, and you're got artistic sort of abilities where you really start to tap into your artistry as a soul, right? We all have an artistry, right? Our Merkaba is just this great sort of energy of creativity, right? And we have incarnations of that sort of just available to us, but we have to allow it in, right? And the great thing, or the adversity of this planet is that there are agendas that don't want us to allow it in, right? They don't want us to concentrate and focus, right? Because then when we allow it in, we can actually start to become not just talented, but become multidimensionally talented. And that's something that's quite extraordinary, right? What I mean, like, interdimensionally talented is meaning you're pulling from multiple dimensions, from multiple incarnations, gifts, right? That you have actually set out, you hunted for it, and you got it. You earned it, right? Because in multiple incarnations, we have earned these sort of gems, right? Think of it like like a stripe of honor, right? And you've earned it through your ability to overcome fear and to overcome these lower vibrations and liberate, right? We get these sort of code, these strips, this strip of honor, right, is because we have, we have created balance in our life, right? Or we have created balance within a situation on earth. And that's what we call a gift. And that's not just like a talent as in like a musical talent, or a talent of science, or a talent of building, right? Let's say you just naturally are a woodmaker, it just comes to you. I'm talking about talent of personality and talent of character, like leadership ability, right? Or people trust you naturally, right? You don't know why, because in previous lifetimes you've earned that strip of trust, that gold strip of trust, right? Or in past lives, you have this character to you where you are very dependable, right? Just naturally, and that's actually can be really useful for you, is because you've gained that gold strip of honor, right? And we have many of them, right, in our Sachic record, many of them, right? But we also have many in our Sachic record, right, of we call scars, right? Scars, wounds, right? These little sort of, wounds that we carry from past lives of injustice or of imbalance or of anything that is unresolved within us, right? Any sort of discord or any sort of like attachment that we've created, right, with person, place, or thing, right? We have to face that, and we have to heal those scars, right? I mean, they can be anything. It can be sexual scars from past lives. It can be scars of homelessness. It can be scars of poverty. It can be scars of neglect or abuse, or it could be fear, right? Some people have fear of fire, fear of water, because they undergoed, past life and near past life, where they didn't make peace with that, that moment, right? It became like a fear or phobia, or in that moment, right, they became very angry or very saddened, or just felt very uneasy with it, right? So that's why in these incarnations we work on healing that, where we work on that through developing our psychic awareness, right? Where we really start to we go to these places, right? It's even on a soul level, we travel to these places. Maybe we've lived in past incarnations, right? When you just happen to walk right into it, right? We're traveling, we don't even know that we're traveling to a place that holds a memory. It could be of a past life of some talent or gift or experience, or it could even be of a trauma or a scar. And we go there because there's something very magical about us crossing through time and crossing through with ability to liberate, right? To liberate. So I like to say that the incarnation where we are most responsible tends to be the incarnation that heals multiple incarnations, right? The incarnation that is most liberated, right? Most sovereign, most empowered is that incarnation that travels to these other incarnations through dreams or through meditation to really heal any scars or wounds, as well as to retrieve any talents and gifts. And we can call this incarnation the final incarnation, the ascension incarnation. Basically, it's just, we have many, not just one, right? Many, but it's an incarnation where we could say, we have raised our vibration, right, through multiple sort of incarnations, right? And we've gained a lot of, or earned a lot of higher energy that we're cultivating in this life, right? Through multiple lifetimes of earning, right? Earning the wealth of the universe. Because like I say, trust is earned, right? You don't, of course, we live on a planet of multiple agendas. You don't just give your trust to anybody because they look shiny and have the good talk, right? There's many charlatans, and we're beginning to understand that it don't matter if you have a PhD, right? If you don't have integrity, it don't matter, right? I don't trust you just because you have a PhD, right? And I wouldn't expect you to trust me just because I have a PhD, right? Because, without integrity, it don't matter, right? It doesn't matter, right? Integrity is what you call your spiritual sort of strips of honor, right? Your gold strips of honor is your integrity, right? That you've earned through your ability, we can say, to do good in the world, right? But also to bring balance in the world, right? To bring Earth to its fruitfulness, right? Its fruitfulness, because Earth, we know, can get really, it can get, imbalanced, right? But when we really take the responsibility and the leadership over our own lives, of our family, of our lineage, right? Even of our geographic region, of our state, our community, whatever it is, we start to really gain, right, this, we start to gain 12 incarnations, I will say, right? 12 incarnations of craftsmanship, of talent, and of character and personality that's very refined. So with the Akashic record, very much, we, again, our Mandela, think of it like your astrological chart, right? When you think of your astrological chart, you think of like a mandala. When you look at your, you can say your sort of blueprint, right? Your astrological picture, and you see a blueprint with all these lines crossing. It looks like a grid, right? It looks like a grid. That is your mandala, right? And your mandala is made of, we know there's planets and there's houses and all these sort of movement that's going on, right? So your sort of mandala, right? Your astrological mandala is basically revealing to you, right, the pathways of your consciousness, the pathways of your intelligence, the pathways of your life force, right? And the pathways they have taken and in past lives, and as well as the pathways they are choosing to take, or you desire, it's evolutionary necessity, that you have constructed in the higher dimensions when you're not born, right? Before you're born, for this life, right? So we come into this life not just random, it's not a fluke, it's not just popping in, right? For some of us, it is because we, have no energy, right? So some of us, very earthbound spirits do incarnate, but they keep recycling aimlessly because they're trying to gain spiritual power to raise their consciousness. But in a low vibration, you only attract low vibrational sort of, environments. So, right, that can be a dilemma, right? But many of us, right, we've constructed, this sort of these pathways, and it's revealed to us in our astrological chart, our mandala. Just like every mandala, if you really look at it and meditate upon it, there's a different message. Just like Tanka, some of protection, right, against negative forces, right, or temptation or lust or these things, right. Some of them are about love, right, and manifesting real authentic love. Some of them are about connecting with these high ones or these ascended masters, or some of them are about connecting with multiple incarnations, right. There's so many that you just meditating upon it. So when we meditate upon our own sort of, astrological mandala, right, we can learn the planets, we can learn the houses, right, which is very beneficial, right, become very studious of these things, because again, they affect us tremendously, and they really do reveal the pathway, right, but we are very psychic, and we naturally can just know, right. Looking at it, it can help us to really it can help us to really be refined about it. But naturally, when we develop our psychic awareness, just raising our consciousness through a form of, creative destiny, of responsibility, liberation, and that can take many forms. Yoga, meditation, ecstatic dance, standing up for yourself. It can be about taking on new experiences, participating in life, right? Really, becoming basically an artisan of life. When we do that, we begin to naturally sort of know what it is that we need to do in order to reach what we call the richness, right? The fullness of our nourishment and our medicine that we have to give, right? Because all of us, we are medicine, just like every tree is medicine to the earth and to the neighboring trees, right? It's medicine, everything that we are. But when we are, in this whatever discord stuff and this irresponsibility and all this depression stuff, because we're making mistakes and bad choices because we're not listening to our intuition, and we're kind of just, just participating in random things because we're not using discernment, right? That we talk about toxic people, right? And that just simply means we are depleting, we're sucking the life out of, right? Because we have no sense of nourishment whatsoever within ourselves, right? And nourishment, we gain nourishment where we start to look youthful and plump, right? Like a child is kind of like, I see a child as like a great sort of blueberry, very plump, right? And just lush and rich, right? Because they're completely nourished, they're completely liberated, they're free children, right? Because their vibration is so high, because they're so close to their soul. And then, as a child, we start to get, caught in the agendas of this planet, right? Educational agendas, work agendas, culture agendas, ideology agendas, you name it. We get caught in the whirlwind of all these agendas that want to, build us to be according to the agenda, which there's so many, it's kind of overwhelming. Like, which one am I supposed to be? I don't know. Am I supposed to be the agenda of my parents, of my government, of my culture, of my religion? I don't know, because they're all sort of in this clash, and there's all sort of like friction with each other. So when we begin to connect with our soul, which is like what Yogi Bhajan has given us, a tool, technology to really amplify the soul, we have our own sort of assignment, duty, and oath that we make to our sort of agenda, right? And that's when we start to become empowered, become liberated, right? And less sort of, caught and stuck and sort of just trapped in these sort of crises that always will be, right? And we know that coming into this incarnation that there's always going to be a crisis here, right? Planet Earth is a cornucopia of agendas, and is so diverse. There's multiple sort of, this planet is just amazing with extraordinary with all of this sort of diversity, right? And even for us to be here now with the balance we do have with all this diversity, right, from all these travelers, right, that from everywhere, all kinds of planetary systems, that means that we have a level of mastery on this planet, right? We have a level of a very strong inner compass of justice, right? But with our Sachic record, we, like I said, we're solving, resolving, and creating, right? We want to create talent, and we want to create craftsmanship and tools, technology, right, for the nourishment and the medicine of this planet, right? And that's what we talk about, the lineage, right? A very strong lineage has multiple generations of women who have been perfecting a trade or a talent or a craftsmanship that's been handed down, a medicine, right? A remedy, a medicine, a tool, a knowledge, right? And they've been handing it down, and it's getting stronger and stronger, right? As it's studied and continues to evolve through multiple generations. But we're very much like that, where we may not have that lineage, right? But we do have, if we don't have that lineage, we definitely have that incarnational sort of, where we've been handing down this talent, right? This medicine, right? Or remedy or healing modality. We've been handing it down to ourselves in multiple incarnations to work, to perfect, to refine, right? And why do we do that? Because the more that we do sort of refine and develop our sort of inner medicine, right? Our nourishment, our richness that we are inside, the more that we tend to have a creative destiny, right? We call dharma, rather than, a destiny of, making a lot of mistakes because we're not nourished enough to actually be corrective or to listen or follow through our intuition. Because when we're not nourished, it's very easy for us to just slip into fear, shame, blame, victim. And that right there, that sort of place that a lot of us kind of fall into, basically, we can wipe out all our energy. We can just wipe out all our energy, right? In that, and then in the great sort of regret or the great sort of disease or sort of pain of that is having to build ourselves back up, right? Because it's like, right, that is the greatest pain of, because it is very painful to, it's actually a lot easier to basically fall and deconstruct yourself and sort of, take on, these lower vibrations. It's a lot easier to slip into lower vibrations. It's very easy, but it can be almost painful to come not only from, point zero, but let's say in the negative, right? In these lower vibrations of shame, blame, trauma, all that, to get to a higher vibration, a vibration where you start to feel stabilized and liberated and empowered, and you start to gain a momentum of nourishment and richness and rhythmic intelligence, right? Where you just start to intuitively be at the right place at the right time, because your aura is, your electromagnetic field is starting to get very, very magnetic to your desire and your evolutionary necessity just naturally, right? It's a lot more painful to do that, right? To from the lower vibrations try to get to, right, higher vibrations, because it's more difficult. It's going to require more energy. And like I said, difficulty means we need more energy. It doesn't mean that the difficulty is something of that's a sign that we're not supposed to do that, right? It actually just means that we need a lot more energy that is available to us now. Just like any scientist who's wanting a breakthrough, it's difficult, and it's difficult more, and it's difficult more, but that just means they need more energy, they need more concentration, they need more study, they need to pay attention more, right? They need more energy, they need something more of, right? More nourishment, right? More experience, or they need more perspective, right? Or education, right? In that you gain more energy, right? And as you gain more energy, the difficulty of it starts to sort of fade out, as the energy that you have gotten is as more than the difficulty, right? Just like your nervous system, it's very hard for your nervous system if to hold your arms up in a white tantric yoga for 60 minutes, right, in a position that's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult. So what you do, right, to hold that posture, right, is that you breathe very, very deeply, very concentratedly, because that's going to give you more energy, right? But if you don't breathe, you're more inclined to just drop your arms and say, like, this is too difficult, because your energy it can't keep up with it, right? So it's just like anything in life, anything, right? Difficulty, you need more energy. And that's the thing with our incarnational, experiences, is that we are on the hunt of something. We're on the hunt not only of strips of honor, right? Gold strips of honor that we earn through our character and through our craftsmanship and through our credibility. That, again, it comes through your ability to really be natural, authentic, and your ability to really be intuitively bold and honest with whatever it is that you're you are doing. And we're also gaining, through multiple incarnations, we're gaining respect for ourselves and for other people, which is very important. And we're also gaining an ability to liberate ourselves and liberate whatever it is that we're gaining, that, right? Because again, life, right? That's what it is, right? So we have to sort of, gain this sort of precision, this higher energy about us, to be able to liberate, right? To liberate. So in our Sattvic record, it's a library, but it's not a library that's just kind of books. It's constantly rewriting, right? It's constantly rewriting itself, and that's why the past, present, and future can be rewritten. It's not something that's set in stone. It's something that can evolve and revolve, and sort of, it can be moved, right? It can be changed. It can be reinvented. But that is through our ability to really be sovereign and to really be natural and authentic with our choices in life. But it's hard, right, to be authentic with yourself when you don't necessarily have a psychic development. And that's why we have lifetimes of psychic development, right? Because psychic development, your authentic code is simply you becoming naturally. You don't even need to be thinking or, doing anything to make it happen, or you naturally start to become your mandala naturally, right? Your mandala is your esoteric key to the universe, right? To your universe, to the planetary systems you've resided on, to multiple, incarnations in multiple dimensions. Your Mandela is your authentic code. And when you begin to use that key and you begin to unlock yourself, right, you start to become this Mandela. You start to become, your aura starts to become that sort of, the pathways, right, of your, you can say your inner universe, right? Your Mandela starts to become see it like as a portal or transportation device that really lays out, right, in your life. You can say these roadways, as well as these pathways, these doorways, these windows into the dimensions and the other planetary systems and the incarnations of yourself, right? And you can pull from it, and you can study it, and you can take it in, and you can let it go, and you can heal it, and you can review it, and you can make amends with it, and you can actually experience it, right? So I wanted to share this with you guys, right? This is a teaching that is definitely very, very cosmic teaching, right? It's very much teaching very close to the yantra, right? The yantra practice. Like looking at a yantra and like, whoa, that's very much what this teaching is that I have shared with you all about the Akashic record and past lives and future lives. So with their future lives that we choose, it really is, think of it like the past, present, and future. It's really all pathways of that we really start to be responsible for when we, in this moment now, right, start to really liberate and really start to open ourselves to a more expanded living, right, where our future and our past is not something that's so like in out of view, or something that's not apparent or not available. It starts to become something that we can review. And not only that can we review, but we can also, in deeper states of consciousness or even self-hypnosis, we can actually even access, right? We can even access. And that's what we call fifth dimensional, right? When we get into the deeper layers of our, self-hypnosis or deeper layers of our consciousness, we can access these pathways of the future and the past. And we can see, right? We can review and become aware of how who we are now actually does create a ripple. It does create this sort of momentum. It does create this, it literally, it projects out into time itself, the past and the future. It projects out, and it creates this sort of this vibrational resonance that begins to literally, what you're rippling out right now creates this vibrational resonance of the future, where you're starting to, through that vibrational resonance, you're starting to construct and materialize an actual experience in the future based on this sort of vibrational rippling that you're projecting towards the future and projecting towards the past. Your vibration is timeless, right? Your gong of what you are, you're putting out there, right? Energetically, it can move and make, right? Move and shake, we'll say. Move and shake the past and the future, right? So when we become available to that, right? We become quite, you can say, aware of that when we take responsibility, right? Because the key to the universe is not given to the reckless or the misbehavior or any of that. The key to the universe is given to the one who has respect for themselves and respect for others and begins to function from the soul, right? The desire and the evolutionary necessity the soul is intending for this life. And so the more that we avoid and distract and deny and do all the shame, blame, and victim stuff, the more that we're out of sync with our soul. And therefore we may try to pull, right, life into whatever we want. But the soul really, we need a key, right? It's like we need a key to the house of our soul, and that we need a key to you can say, the house of creative destiny, right? And creative destiny, it really is, it's something that we earn, right? In anything that is really of high quality, or anything that has an artistry that is actually very extraordinary and captivating, that actually brings us closer to God, or brings us closer to, our authentic code, where we start to feel one with ourselves, which is basically being one with your soul, is usually artistry that is very soulful, because it doesn't matter, you could be the greatest sort of painter and all that kind of stuff, but if your artistry, it reeks of whatever your sort of discord you have going on, your whole disconnect with your soul, you can feel it. It doesn't matter how good, right, your artistry is, or how, clean your house is, for example. If that was created at a disconnect with your soul, right, out of a means for something else to not nourish your soul, but to nourish something else that does not have to do with respect for yourself and your desire and evolutionary need for this life, it doesn't matter, right? Because we are meant in the artistry of our final incarnation, right? Like Yogi Bhajan was in his final incarnation, or the artistry for our incarnations of, liberated living, right? Which is what we want to be liberated, right? Liberated living, right? That's kind of like our nirvana, where we're no longer sort of in pain over the crises that always is, right? We're liberated, meaning we come in and we have such a high amount of energy that really we can take it, right? We're very patient, we're very tolerant, and we have a lot of grace of God. That's psychic power. The grace of God is psychic power, and that we gain, right, through off-planetary and on this planetary sort of, life experience. So we do that because we want our artistry we want it to literally replicate our soul to a T. That's what we really want. We don't want our artistry to replicate an agenda of some dark entity, or our artistry to replicate our shame or blame, and I don't like myself, I hate myself, or greed, or, look at me, or weakness or insecurity and all that kind of, we don't want it to be that. We want our artistry to be something that is like a doorway for not just, a doorway for people, right? It gives higher energy. It's a doorway. It's a higher energy portal that gives people the you could say the grace of God, right? For them to find their way back to who they are, to their soul, to their soulfulness, to their liberation, right? To their leadership, to whatever it is, that their desire, their evolutionary necessity, that artistry literally pulls people, magnetizes people back to their desire and the evolutionary necessity for this lifetime that they may have put on hold for multiple lifetimes, because they simply didn't have or don't have the psychic awareness to actually open up, right? And actually gain energy to begin to move towards that. So artistry of a higher vibration gives people, it develops people's psychic awareness without them even knowing it, right? The artistry doesn't even need to be spiritual. It just, you feel it, you listen to it, you hear it, you smell it, whatever it is, immediately your senses open up and you become a lot more like psychically available, intuitively honoring of yourself. And that is what we work lifetimes to develop. And we go through these, karmic things of our mistakes so we can really learn the polarity and really learn how we are creator, and that we can create in polarity. We can create, stagnation, shame, blame, embarrassment, all that kind of stuff. Temptation, lust, we can create our own sort of self-hate, self-destruct, but we can also create, which is our liberation, right? Our sense of love and empowerment and play and joy and, mental strength and physical strength and fulfillment within our heart and maturity within our spirit. And we experience both so we can know what it is to be a master. Because a master isn't just, I have love in every incarnation and there's no sense of difficulty, right? A master is ability to take the duality, take the polarity of, right, the choices that we make, right, from low vibrational to high vibrational, and be able to face it all with integrity in the eyes, right? Face your past and whatever you've done or did, and face it with integrity in the eyes, where you are in duty, you have assignment. And you look at that with integrity. You look at that with a sense of soul and soulfulness and honor with yourself and with your past, your present, and the future of where you need to be, you need to do, you need to go for you. To reach the authentic you, where you tend to function from more fearlessness instead of fear, phobia, whatever, trauma, fearlessness, and you start to function from more of a state of Mother Gaia, where you start to really become an ambassador, a guardian, as well as a vibration that represents what Mother Gaia is, what Earthling is, right? You start to really become what we call a pure elemental, not earthbound spirit. I'm talking about elemental, where you start to really function from the fruit, the fruitfulness, the nourishment and the medicine that what it means to be in the grace of Mother Gaia, in the grace of God, in the practice of Mother Gaia, in the good nature of Mother Gaia, in the humbleness, the humbling and balancing that Mother Gaia is. You start to open that up. You start to earn that respect from Mother Gaia. Whew. You become this elemental sort of spirit, or this elemental power that really brings about, we call this beauty that you become just naturally. This, we talk about mature beauty, not where you're this red rose. When I see somebody who's emotionally or spiritually like maturing, I start to see them becoming a red rose. Where literally a red rose is one of the richest richest scents and sort of the richest colors, as well as becomes the most nourishing sort of vibration in the field of roses, right? That red rose really represents coming into the regalness of our soul, coming into the nobility of our duty and assignment and responsibility to the soul of ourself and the soul of Mother Gaia, or Mother Earth, where we start to truly vibrate we begin to truly vibrate, express, demand, command, and make, establish, build artistry that brings not one, two, but brings man and women to a liberated state. And when we're at a liberated state, why is it important for us to be there? It's because that's when we start to really be in creative destiny, and that's where we really, as human, start to really become talented with our life, right? Talented, not confused, drift, shame, blame, game, mind games, trauma. We start to become talented, right? The medicine we are, the nourishment we become talented, right? With this chess game, with this polarity, with these agendas, we start to become talented. We start to become radiant. We start to become, when we're talented, we eventually become what? Credible. Right? And it's through the passion and the strive of our integrity that gets us that character and that personality that is authentic. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Because in our final incarnation, or the higher incarnations, we are credible through our integrity. We've earned it through our responsibility to our liberation, to liberty, and to the balance, the justice, right? Through overcoming the difficulties that require us to have a lot of energy, that require a lot of tolerance to pull our pants up and to really, right, to listen, right, obey, and serve our soul. We become a character of that truly is radiant, and that's when we become psychically, we've earned psychically the universe